And so I want to introduce our panel for today for our strategies for attraction, retention, and workforce success. And we've got an amazing panel. I'm going to introduce them. Lisa Cooper, President and CEO of Cooper People Group here. And we also have Tanya Ross, Senior Director, Human Relations, Bimbo Bakeries, who provided some great snacks for us on yesterday. I'm 5 pounds heavier because of you right now. And also Daniel Quintanilla, Director of Talent Programs, Acquisition, and Development from Gentex. Let's give them a round of applause. And of course, yours truly is the host today. Okay, so awesome. How are you feeling today?
Awesome. Excited.
Fantastic.
Are you ready to talk attraction, retention, and workplace success?
It's the only thing I like to talk about.
You got a lot to talk about? Awesome. Well, let's jump in. Let's get started. And we also, you can text your questions to the number on the screen that was on the screen, because we will do some Q&A right after we go through the questions here. All right, so Lisa, I'm going to jump right in with you if I may.
Let's go.
So Lisa, the changing landscape of talent acquisition, let's talk about that. What are the biggest challenges organizations face in attracting top talent today from your perspective?
Oh, it's not as easy. It'll never be as easy as it is today to hire people, right? It gets harder and harder and harder. The world of work has changed a lot. And so at our practice at Cooper People Group, we get the pleasure of working with many different sizes and kinds of organizations. So we have sort of a bird's eye view of what's happening in the talent landscape, particularly here locally. And there's definitely some common themes that I see. I think organizations that have a post and pray strategy, it's not really a strategy, let's just call it that, right? And not really thinking about the candidate experience as something that I see quite often. The job description with must lift 50 pounds, other duties as assigned, doesn't really create that compelling call to action that you really want your reader to be excited about your opportunity. I once applied for a job where the posting included some things and they said, as a director of HR, you get to be in charge of hoopla. And I thought, what is hoopla? I don't know what this is. But I was so curious. It caught my attention, right? I wasn't even really looking for a job, but it piqued my curiosity in such a way that it really inspired me to I want to have a conversation. Of course, I took the job. I got the job. And it was a great experience. You know what hoopla actually was? It was like tacos on Friday. They just gave it a fancy name. So it didn't even have to be that fancy, but they really put me as the reader in the driver's seat, and they created that really compelling call to action. I think other things that I see is organizations that aren't maybe paying attention to what the rumor on the street is in terms of their image in the talent marketplace, right? If you've not been out to your Glassdoor, your Indeed reviews, you got to own and optimize those pages and really illustrate for your candidates why working for our organization is the best career move they'll ever make, right? Whether it's pictures or videos and the long list of benefits that we offer. Because there's a massively shrinking labor pool. In West Michigan, we're a little bit buffered from that, but the proverbial purple unicorn, if you will, likely doesn't have the skills that you might need. Maybe hasn't even been born yet because we've got declining birth rates here and across the nation. And so thinking about our candidates and the skills that they bring and really speaking to those in our talent attraction processes, I think is something that many of us in this room continuously focus on.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we have to mark off our post and pray strategy. That's not going to work moving forward. Excellent.
I've yet to see it be really that effective.
Tanya, what about you?
Yep. So I would say from our perspective, we have a talent shortage and skills gap. And so what we're seeing is that the candidates or the people that have the skills already have a job. So when you think about it during COVID time, people were jumping from job to job. I don't think that's happening as much anymore. So what we're finding is that the labor market is really aligning with the economy. And what we're finding is that people are staying more stable in their secure jobs that they have today. So what we're finding is that they're afraid to go to other jobs because a lot of companies are restructuring, a lot of companies are eliminating jobs, and they feel like if they move to another job, they may be the one that might lose their job. So they're staying where they are. So one of the things when we think about the skills gap that we have, we took a look at if we can't find the candidates internal with our own associates and we can't find external candidates, what do we need to do? How do we transform the way that we look at recruiting and finding qualified candidates that really have the skills that we're looking for? So we've created things like apprenticeship programs. Maintenance is one of the most difficult jobs that we have, and they're maintenance mechanics, so they work on our machines. So what we did is we created an apprenticeship program where our internal associates that want to learn maintenance can become an apprentice, learn the position, and then move up to a level C, B, and A with training and testing. The other thing that we're finding that is a huge challenge as we think about the candidate pool is people want to work from home. People want to have either a hybrid, work from home 100%, or they want to be streamlined, right? They want to work 3 or 4 days a week. So one of the things that we have done as an organization is really try to talk to the associates, understand exactly what they want, what they're looking for, what's going to retain them, and we've made some modifications in some of the things that we do. We've changed schedules.
Okay.
We've also not only changed schedules, but we also have taken vacation. Like for some of our frontline associates, they don't get vacation until after 1 year. We moved that up to 90 days. We have done things like just really taking a look at their floating holidays and their personal days and how do we move it up closer, because that will entice the external candidates to come and work for us as well.
Awesome, thank you. So Daniel, Tanya began to talk about retention strategies. She jumped into question 2 before I asked it, but that's fine. That's fine. I really love the leadership in her. So, can you share with us what key factors contribute to high employee retention, and what mistakes should organizations avoid in that area?
Yeah, we want to make sure people want to stay here. Think about West Michigan in general. We're a very global company. I know there's a lot of other global companies here. How do we get people not to leave West Michigan? Also, how do we get people to come to West Michigan, right? So you do that by connecting them to something, connecting them to some mission, connecting them to some value. Our team's done a really good job. For example, our university recruiting. We've had up to 146 interns throughout, our school year, or the summer for them to come to Gentex, and we've connected them to, here's what you can find in West Michigan. We all live in West Michigan. We know it's an amazing place to live. People don't know that. Right, when you leave West Michigan, the manufacturing in West Michigan, the technology in West Michigan can compete. Nationally, people just don't know that. So how are we sharing that? How do we connect to the mission? We've done some really cool things at Gentex. We're going to start a daycare here pretty soon for our employees at subsidized cost. Daycare is like a 2-year waiting list to get into a daycare, right? So I have to plan 2 years ahead of time to have a kid to get a baby. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And then the cost of it is crazy. So you see families who have someone stay home. My wife had to stay home for years to watch our kids, right? And we struggled, right? That's what happened when you only have one breadwinner. Or you had a spouse on first shift, spouse on second shift, swapping a kid in the middle. Like, that doesn't have a great family dynamic. So how you connected them to a mission, to a value by doing that, the daycare helps them. Now, I will say, I know not every company can just buy daycare. Right, it's expensive, and I get that, right? We've also done things like our Spanish-speaking program. If people have heard about that work we've done with that, prior to 2021, you had to be able to read and speak in English to get a job at Gentex, and we decided, well, Ottawa County is over 25% Spanish-speaking. Kent County is 15% Spanish-speaking. There's a huge population of people who wanted to work with us but couldn't. So what could we do? Well, we decided, we can hire these people, but before we did that, we were going to make a truly inclusive environment for them before they walked in the door. Application, interview. There's someone at all levels that you can talk to that can speak in your language. We're going to change who you are. You can be your culture, right? And what that has done is it brought a mission and a vision to a team to say, hey, this is where I want to be a part of the things that you're doing. And the coolest thing about it is we started with our people on the floor, our manufacturing teams. They found their family members. They wanted to be a part of it. And a lot of people have built this program, started at 0, grew to over 250 employees, and about over 50 of them have moved through different parts of the organization because they've learned enough English, they've learned enough skills. I did an audit on these employees, and we had doctors, we had lawyers, we had all these skills from different parts of the world came to America that didn't matter what they did at their home, right? So how can we help them bridge those gaps? So creating a mission and value to something that you do in an organization makes people want to stay, want to be a part of it.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for that. Lisa, can you chime in on that, especially the part of what mistakes should organizations avoid?
Yeah. It's so hard, right? Because there definitely can't be a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think that's one of the things that I see is we're not meeting people where they're at and not asking what draws you to our organization? Why do you stay here? What would cause you to leave? And there's 1,000 different ways to do that, right? Many of us do an annual employee engagement survey, right? But are we really having meaningful connection one-on-one with each of our associates and team members about those questions? Are we having skip level meetings where we're talking to people maybe in our downline or in our upline about our experience, what we need to thrive? Stay interviews. There's 1,000 different things that we can do, but really stopping and pausing to ask the question and really listen. I think the other mistake that I see is those of us in HR, many of us in HR here in the room, a lot of friends out there, we've often modeled our employee experience over the employee life cycle, right? I'm a new hire, I'm an emerging professional, maybe I'm getting close to retirement, right? And we've built our programs and even our benefits around the employee life cycle at work. Right. I argue we're missing the boat there. We really need to be structuring our programs and our policies and our engagement strategies over the employee life, not their life at work, right? But maybe they're just graduating college. Maybe they're renting their first apartment. Maybe they're buying their first home. Maybe they're having their first baby, right? Maybe they have aging parents. Maybe they're going through menopause. Maybe they're thinking about retirement. Maybe they're buying a vacation home, right? There could be many, many, many things. Maybe there's a legal issue. Not all these things are positive, right? Because life will life. People will people, life will life. Those are things I like to say. All right, so let's make sure we're there doing what we can as employers to provide employees with maybe a little bit of respite and a little bit of support system as they navigate life's challenges, because we know that if they come to work, those things don't just stop at the front door, right? That sort of stuff is coming with our employees every day when they walk in the front door. So what does that look like, right? So I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I think work.
Yes.
So we're having some conversation, we're listening, we're asking, what are some things that you can do, right? So I think it looks different everywhere. I know that there's great products out there and great partners out there that are doing concierge medicine. Hi, Nate. Go see Nate. Right? So that's a wonderful thing that you can do. Taking a look at college loan forgiveness. A lot of us have done tuition reimbursement. That's been around for decades, right? Like, that's not new. But what about the folks that are coming out of school, graduating? What can we do to help them pay that down? There's different programs that are available for that. It was great to see here in the ladies' room. There's feminine hygiene products, right? And these don't have to be big old expensive things. They can be little tiny things. I just posted a blog about menopause in the workplace, right? There's different things that are happening to our folks. So making sure we're being thoughtful about, and it's not big things. It's these micro moments that really matter and really cultivate an employee experience and draw me into your organization or Daniel into his organization, right? So the list goes on and on, right? But let's normalize every new baby that an employee has gets a baby onesie or a pacifier with your logo on it, and they get a little, right? Little things can really make a big difference, I think. And these are sort of extra things, but the professional development book club, right? The list goes on and on. But really thinking about what matters most to your people and then designing a strategy. And that strategy will evolve, I think, over time. But the one-size-fits-all, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we've done it for 20 years. I think those are the organizations that might struggle a bit more with retention. So, I think there's a lot of different ideas. The goal is to get creative, phone a friend, ask around in the room, what's everybody else doing, right? I shared a few ideas that I've seen work well for some of our clients, but the list goes long.
Tanya, I want to give you a chance to chime in on those strategies that you've seen be successful. But you mentioned something, Lisa, about that work-life balance. I know that's not in my questions, but I think with having Gen Z to baby boomers, if we could just talk about how important that work-life balance is. But before we do that, strategies that you've seen are successful for retention.
Well, I think first and foremost is that we value the person, right? And when I think about Bimbo Bakery, valuing the person is at the top of our beliefs. So the goal is really to foster a culture that's of respect, trust, fairness, and care, making sure that associates really have an opportunity to be heard, and we've got to be open to diverse perspectives. And I think those are commonly known things that we need to do. What I would say is one of the things that we've done at Bimbo Bakeries that we found is successful is we created a retention toolkit. Because what we found is that our frontline supervision didn't really know how to communicate with frontline associates. You know, so they would come in, they would just do the work, they wouldn't have conversations with the associates, and the associates' morale was low. And so what we did is we created this toolkit, and part of the toolkit is for the first 4 weeks that we bring in a new hire, we gave the supervisors questions to ask. Things like, how are you doing today? How's your training going? What do you think about your schedule? How's your family? You know, because they weren't having those types of conversations. And so for those first 4 weeks, they had those conversations, and the thought processes after those 4 weeks, they will automatically learn that pattern of having the conversations. Some of the other things that we did is we added in a 7-day touch point, because we really looked at our retention and we said, where are we losing the majority of our people? Because when you think about retention, that's really your new hires. When you think about turnover, that's everybody. And what we found is that we were losing initially majority of our people in the first 30 days. So what do we need to do to maybe make sure that we are capturing that? So we did what was called a touch point at 7 days with the new hires to ask them what's working well, what's not, what do you want to see changed, all those different questions, and we would implement and put action plans towards it. We also do 30, 60, and 90-day roundtables with our new hires because we want to continuously know what's working. And I can tell you our retention rates have improved by putting this into place.
Excellent. That's a great idea. I know we've just brought on a new hire, and our HR person is Tiffany. Is Tiffany in the building? Just shout out to Tiffany.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, okay, I see you back there, Tiffany. So the funny thing about it is, we go through the interview process, we hire someone, and then Tiffany gives me an onboarding job description that every week I've got to check in with her. And I was like, Tiffany, I'm busy, but it works. It makes you engage in those conversations. You have those check-in points. You're checking to see, you know, again, she doesn't have any children at this point to talk about those things, but I just thought it was very interesting because I've been in the workforce for so long that I'm used to being hired and your boss doesn't talk to you about things for the first 90 days. But it's so different now, and those are great strategies to really connect, because I didn't really understand the first 30 days, people are losing?
Initially, yes.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
You know, so I think the thing is, like we were saying before, what we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you can't do that today. You always have to transform. You always have to look at the work. You always have to look at how do we make it better for the associates that are coming in. You know, one of the other things I thought about is we know that retention has to do with compensation and benefits as well, right? And we have to be competitive when we think about those compensation and benefits. But to me, it's more than just benefits, health and welfare, right? How do we talk about wellness? How do we share with our associates? We care about their wellness, not only professionally, but personally. You know, and one of the things that we do is we have, once a month, we have what's called Win Well Wednesday. And this is where we do a wellness workshop with our associates that will help them in their personal life as well as their business life. Things like developing resiliency, understanding how to manage your stress, overcoming adversity, healthy living, making sure that they understand how they can eat healthy, how important exercise is. We offer discounts to gym memberships. We have health coaches that associates can have. And we also talk about how do you manage your money, because that's so important, you know, especially in today's economy, right? We got to know how to manage our money, not only for today, but for the future. And so those are some of the things that we do that helps with retention.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Daniel, if I may, as we shift to the role of leadership in the workplace culture, as Isabel began to mention today, how can leaders foster a culture where employees feel valued and empowered?
Yeah, I think, for one, things we're talking about here, I think the mental health thing we're talking about, right, that work-life balance is very important. I say many times, like, Gentex will be making money 20 years from now, right? My kids are going to be out of the house, right? So I want to spend some time with my kids when I can. I want my family to be able to spend time with their kid. It's important to me. It's important to them. The mental health of being at work, what we talked about 10, 15 years ago, where people worked all hours, people don't want that anymore, right? That's not a retention tool. Right, that's the opposite. You will lose those people now. And then as a leader, I think it's important, I'm glad we're going to talk about tough conversations, giving feedback. You know, we talk West Michigan nice a lot. You know, it took me 10 years, I think, to get real feedback at Gentex, right? And I was like, man, I wish I'd have known 10 years ago that if I don't smile, it looked like I walked off the Godfather set, right? That's what I heard.
Ouch.
Yeah, so I should smile more. But that was the point of that. And also, you need to be able to receive feedback, right? Even the feedback that hurts, right? I don't think we all do a good job of that. Disc profiles, I'm a very hard, strong D, right? So it's very easy for me to shut somebody down and not let them get their opinion out. So why would anybody give an opinion if I'm just going to shut it down, right? So being able to receive that feedback, I think leaders need to do that to be able to empower their teams, to be able to give them feedback and make decisions, and also to let them be risk takers, right? And be able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Keep making the same mistake over and over again in a different conversation, but if you don't allow them to take risks, to try things, they'll never be empowered to go do anything, right? I don't need a team that I tell what to do every day, all day, and that's what they do. And I need them to come with me ideas and allow to have those ideas, and that's where I need to not have that Godfather face when they come with me those conversations. But I think those things, allow for risk-taking, take feedback, and allow people to make decisions and do things. All of us need to do that. And for some of us really strong leaders, that's hard to do sometimes. I want to go do it, right? I can get it done. Well, it's not always the best way every time, so.
No, excellent. Thank you so much. That's a great answer. Lisa, I want you to chime in on that. How can leaders foster a culture where employees feel valued and empowered?
Yeah, it's tough. You know, we all know in the room that people don't leave organizations, they leave the manager. There's the book, It's the Manager, right? So I think we put a whole lot of weight on the impact and influence that a leader has within an organization. Although I will say, it is often about the team too. We actually have some clients who have no managers. Just process that for a second. They literally are self-autonomous, self-governing, like their teams run the organization, which is pretty fascinating, but it works for them. Probably not going to work for all of us in the room, but it works for them. But they've heavily invested in leadership training for everybody in the organization, not just an elite few, right? And so leadership can begin at any level, and I think giving people the space and grace to lean into those leadership skills is really, really paramount. And not just managing, right? But like truly cultivating and coaching and asking those great questions every morning, right? And sometimes you start with the checklist, right? Like those little things can really add up. One of the things that I'm a big fan of too is those giving people additional grace and space in which to expand their skills and knowledge. The world of work is changing. The competencies that we needed yesterday are not the ones that we're going to need 10 years from now. And so what does that look like? A skills gap analysis and doing some training. Maybe you have some innovation hours. I know at Cooper People Group, we just started an AI task force that has very little guardrails, but to go figure it out what that means for us, right? I'm intentionally not giving a lot of direction just to let the exploration and the skill development just evolve and grow and expand. So I'm pretty excited about that. You know, sometimes I also think that as leaders, we know that our number one job is to get peak performance out of our people. We need to get the job done. We're trying to get the widget out the door, the patient seen, the invoice sent, whatever that happens to look like for your organization. But sometimes I think another part, and often overlooked, is our job is to help people on their journey, even if it's not with us. Maybe they evolve from your department. Maybe they even evolve from our organization. You know, having a closed mindset of I'm going to sink my claws into you and never let you leave until the day that you die, like maybe that's not serving our organizations that well. Like maybe it's okay that individuals are with us for a reason or a season, but after 10 years, maybe they're ready for the next thing, and maybe it's not with us, right? Maybe it's with Cascade Engineering or, Gentex, right? They start with my little shop and they graduate, right? And you sort of consider yourself a professor and a teacher and a coach and a mentor, And so I think we need to change our perspective about holding people back, especially if we see that they're capable of something beyond what we are able to deliver for them. So I like to just think about our roles as leaders, a little bit differently. Maybe another closing thought on this particular element, because I could talk about this for about 4 days. Just the gratitude piece, right? Like the simple act of thank you. We all know it. This is something we were taught in kindergarten, but like the sticky note, everybody should walk out of here today and go say thank you to somebody on your team. Those little, again, micro moments go a really, really long way.
Great answer. So I was just stuck on the organization that doesn't have bosses, they just have teams, right?
Yeah, we have a few in town here.
So Rick Baker, our next 101, I've got something I want to talk about. So we're
Sorry, Rick.
So Tanya, real quick, what practical steps can leaders take to create an environment of trust and psychological safety?
So I think there's a lot of different things that we can do as leaders, right? I think number one is to make sure that we're giving our associates the opportunity to communicate and to be heard, right? And when you think about being heard, it can be done in so many different ways. You can do one-with-ones, you can do round tables, you can do town halls. But I think the key thing is when we talk about associates being able to communicate and be heard and feel comfortable in being heard, is we have to follow up with them. The worst thing is to have a conversation and then nothing else happens from it. So I think that's number one, to make sure that we're following up. The other part is making sure that we're spending time letting the associate know that we care about them as a person, and it's not necessarily all about the work that they're doing. Because sometimes we're so focused on the work, we forget about the people. And we got to come back to the person and really get to know the person and ensure that the person knows that we care about them, that we value them, that we want them to be successful. And I know we just talked about a little bit about how important it is for allowing associates to make mistakes. When you talk about empowering people, you give them the training and allow them to make decisions. I always think about it as founder's mentality. If you were running your business, how would you make decisions? That's the same way that we want our associates to make decisions. Think about as if you own that business. And then I think finally, as leaders, we need to make sure that associates really feel comfortable in sharing their ideas without feeling judged. Making sure that we're creating that atmosphere where all ideas are important, all ideas are heard, and everybody can share their perspectives and nobody's judging them, I think is really, really important.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you so much. As we wrap this up, we want to talk about building a workplace for the future and living in the future. So, whichever one wants to start with this, how is AI and automation changing the way we hire and develop talent?
I can start first because I think about with our company, we have a CRM system, a customer relationship management system called Career Connect, and it has an AI component with it. And so when you think about candidates and we're interviewing, if they're interviewing with us, they're interviewing with multiple companies at the same time. And if we can't move fast as an organization, we're gonna lose people. So our system, which is Career Connect, does a lot of different things with our AI component. It can send out mass emails, it can send out mass texts, it can take the skills of the candidate off of their resume and match it to our actual positions. And then when those positions become open, it will push out notifications automatically to say that this position is open and we want you to apply for it. And if you think about that, that reduces biases, right? Because now we no longer are using our opinions to say what skills match our open jobs. The AI system is actually doing that, which I think is really awesome.
It is. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Lisa?
I'm happy to speak about that a little bit. So AI, it's really evolving the way the world of work works, if you will. You know, and there's a lot of great tools out there, right? From your applicant tracking or CRM system. I was actually using People GPT this morning to look at some candidate profiles, and it was doing a great job. But we know that in some of those systems there is some inherent bias, and so we're starting to see a lot of blooming legislation about AI. So if, especially multi-state employers in the room, make sure you're paying attention to the requirements, because while we don't have them yet here in the state of Michigan, may be coming at some point, about the sort of testing that needs to be done if you're going to be using any sort of AI in your selection process. And so, but you know, for simple things, right? Like, I need a job description for a controller. It really helps with that white blank page, you know, problem that we've all been there before, right? Gets you a jumping off point. I need a PowerPoint deck. I need a basic checklist, right? Don't use it for compliance. Please do not use it for compliance. I had a client say, well, I could just like chat GPT how to do a separation agreement. I was like, no, we are not doing that. We are not doing that. Right? So there's some things. In fact, I actually had this happen to a client the other day where there was a board meeting and there was a discussion about maybe we have to do a reduction in force because of loss of funding. Someone joined the meeting with an AI transcriber thing, and the whole meeting was transcribed, and a copy of the meeting transcript was sent out to every single individual on that meeting invite, which included the entire company. And yeah, I was talking to my friend who's a labor and employment law attorney here at one of the firms downtown, and she said, oh, I had a similar thing happen where we asked a candidate to join for a virtual interview over Zoom or Teams, and there was an AI note taker attached to someone's profile on the call, transcribed the entire call, and of course when the candidate left, the team continued to debrief, and you can see where I'm going with this. Like, this is not, so AI is great, but especially those of us in leadership roles and HR roles, we've really got to have our arms wrapped around some guidance and some policies and some good training for our folks so that we don't misuse and misapply, because we really put our organizations in a position of risk if we don't have some basic foundational elements that are set. So I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but like, let's be real about what it can and cannot do and where it's appropriate to use it and where it's not. For our clients, we don't even allow you to transcribe a meeting because I don't know what you're about to tell me about your people who just peopled again. And so we don't record any of that because I don't know where it's going to go, right? So we've had some lessons learned there. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Daniel, what new skills and competencies should companies prioritize in their hiring and training programs?
Yeah, I think, I won't call these new skills, but I think something that we don't do enough of is training in change management. Because one thing's true, things are going to change. Right? Changing all the time. And then navigating the gray. Right? Everybody wants everything black and white. They want to know exactly what's happening now. But what happens when it doesn't happen the way you think it's going to happen?
True.
How are we training that? How are we training our teams on that? How are we training our emerging talent on that? How are we training emerging talent on AI? It's something we're talking about, change management and AI. We have managers right now who are reaching out to me. It's like, Dan, I think this guy's interviewing, cause almost all our interviews are virtual, at least to start with, is using ChatGPT to answer these questions, right? And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, but the fear of these things, how do we get the message out? Things are changing. Our emerging talent, they're using AI, they understand AI better than my managers do now, right? So how are we helping them navigate those things? As business change, the climate's going to change, how we recruit changes, how we need to lead changes, how are we helping people with that change management and navigating when things don't turn out the way you need it to.
That's true.
Or you expect them to.
Awesome. Well, go ahead, jump in. Yes, jump in.
I wanted to add to the AI piece because, you know, we need to think of AI as a tool, and I think that's what you were saying, as a tool. And we can utilize it, but we got to fact check it. So one of the workshops that I went to said, you know, use it because it's the wave of the future. But you got to make sure the information is accurate. So that's one of the things that I would just share with you all. Don't just go by what AI tells you. Make sure you're doing the research yourself. And then also think about AI and how that brings about disability inclusion. You know, I can tell you from our company standpoint, it helps with communications. You know, so individuals that have like a speaking or writing disability can use AI to help them to feel more confident in their abilities there. If they have a cognitive disability, it helps them with their spelling and their grammar. And I can tell you, visual impairment. Our systems are geared to help them be in a meeting, and they can come back out and say what questions were asked in that meeting, what questions were not asked, and help them formulate the answers to those questions. You know, so there's a lot that we can do to bring in inclusion as it relates to people that have disabilities, to make sure that they're more comfortable in the workplace as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much. Well, we have one question or a few questions from the audience that I want to make sure that I get a chance to ask. So, from the audience, we have, how do you attract people outside of your industry, and how do you draw people not searching for a job to consider changing careers?
I'll take a stab at that. You know, one of the things I think we're going to have to start doing a better job of in the talent community is not posting for titles, but posting our jobs for skills. Because again, with a shrinking labor pool, retirees, you know, are retiring at rapid clip. We're going to have a skills gap shortage, and so really, you know, maybe it's less about I've been a director, or I've been in the communications department, or I've been in the, you know, innovation team, right? But we're really looking for core competencies and making sure that we are speaking the language, that there might be some transferable skills from outside of our industry or outside of our area. You know, hopefully AI would help us, you know, broaden our reach in terms of bringing in folks. Also, Hello West Michigan, if you're not a member of Hello West Michigan, it's a great partner for us here, community partner. Really involved with welcoming and creating a welcoming place for individuals to come to. I think also too, you know, looking at different types of labor pools, right? Formerly incarcerated, right? New immigrants. I know the Grand Rapids Chamber, the new Kent County Welcome Plan, very involved with that. So really thinking different about your labor segments, people with different abilities, to your point, right? So really thinking about your messaging and your job posting and where you're going to the career fairs, if you will. I think it's requiring us to broaden our reach and broaden our minds, rather than just the boring old, I'm going to just post this on Indeed, and again, post and pray that the right candidate falls out of the sky. It's going to require some ingenuity, some creativity, and some maybe blowing up the way we used to do it to really hone in on the skills we need that could transfer into a role like this.
Excellent. Thank you so much. One more question. What role in retention and unlocking talent do you see in a company's investment in its own technology?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, and before I repeat that, I want to remind people that the number is in their handout, also to text to the secret person texting me, okay? So the number's in your handout.
Text Rick Baker.
Right. So what role in retention and unlocking talent do you see in the company's investment in its own technology?
I'm just going to say, I think that as organizations, we do have to invest in technology. We have to keep up with the competitive world that we have out there. And we should always think about it from a transformation standpoint. Always looking at the work. Is the work the right work that we should be doing today? And the processes. And we talked about what we did 5-10 years ago. We can't do that today. So we have to keep up with the technology to make sure that we're competitive as an organization, and just keeping an open mind to transformation. Always looking at the work, making changes, making modifications, and making, I think automatically if you do that, that will help the organization stay competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think that no matter what we do, Gentex is a technology company. We're investing in technology all the time. But if we're not upskilling our employees to be able to use the technology, to understand what we're doing, it doesn't matter, because it always comes back to people. So, I mean, that's it. You have to invest in your employees to be able to work in that technology to begin with. Right? Our technology is an attraction tool to people from outside of West Michigan when they find out what we actually do. But to keep them to stay there is to help continue to develop them. Continuous learning, you have to be able to do that.
Excellent.
I think about that. That's important. I think about years ago when I worked at a company and everything was manual. Anybody remember that? You go work for a company and everything you do is manual. But you've come from an automated company and you go to a manual company, and I could remember thinking, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? So when we think about candidates and bringing in new candidates or making hiring decisions or even retention, technology is so important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've got a question for Daniel. I think we'll start with you, Daniel. How do you know what inclusive initiatives to prioritize in your organization?
That's a good question. I think we should all be using data for everything, right? We haven't said data, but we should have said data 18 times. We can't be guessing on any of these things. For us, it's always been about what the data shows us, what makes business sense, and what are our employees telling us, right? Those surveys that we talk about, are we doing enough of those? That's what tells us what to go work on, right? We know that, like I mentioned, the Spanish-speaking program, we had 25% of the population Spanish-speaking. We don't want to stop at Spanish-speaking employees and community. However, we know that made a lot of sense business-wise because we pull the data, right? The things they work on internally, we do a lot of work of breaking down barriers of employment. What makes it hard for people to get a job, right? So the cost of education, transportation, daycare we talked about, right? The language ability. So those are the things that we've said, what are we going to do about those things? So people may not get to Zealand, but we put a facility, in Cottage Grove here in Grand Rapids, right, for people to be able to walk to work. Right. We have a partner with a GRCC table there. We have a partnership with them to help people with the cost of education. We'll pay for the first 5 classes of any employee, which can lead into their tuition reimbursement. That gets them a certificate in starting with maintenance or technician work, right? It's at no cost, right? What are those barriers? But it's our employees, the community, and the data telling us what we need to go work on.
That's good.
So good.
That's good.
So good.
Awesome. One last question. How are you prioritizing and creating career paths for growth, especially with the workforce getting older and younger at the same time? It's a great question. It's a 2-part question.
I'll go there. It's interesting. I think forever in the world of work, we've talked about, we have to have these career paths, right? Where if you start at a level 1, you get to a level 2, and then you get a level 3, and then you become a lead and a supervisor, and like it's a very definitive roadmap. And I argue that it's not necessarily a career ladder. It might be a career jungle gym, right? And maybe we need to help people figure out their path, again, even if it's not in our own department or our own organization. So I'm a big fan of a tool called a sort of a blueprint. And the blueprint looks different for every single individual. So there is no, as a level 1, here's your path and here's your ladder. It's hey, Rodney, as you as an individual, let's co-create a plan for you that's recognizing the skills that you have, your desires, your aspirations, because your skills are very, very different from hers, mine, or his, right? And so we need to co-create something that's really meaningful, and maybe that involves some chamber leadership programs. See what I did there?
I love that.
Yeah. Right? LGR, class 2025, thank you. Right? And maybe it's a book study, and maybe it's cross-training, and maybe it's going to do a job shadow, and maybe it's, there's many, many different things. And your plan, your blueprint is going to look very, very different than mine because you come with skills and experiences that I don't have, right? And vice versa. Right. So I like to do some custom work and really showing up to meet our people where they're at and being thoughtful about where they're headed next.
Awesome.
That's excellent. Let's give them all a round of applause.